Hello friends, this is going to be my first video in context to PHP. Since many people will be doing projects in context to PHP, so for that reason I'm starting a separate playlist where a wide range of programs covering from the very fundamental to that of the advanced level, and if possible I will even touch Laravel as well. So this video is going to be the first video, and like my usual playlist I always try to take input from the user and perform different programs. No exception is going to be this playlist. In front of you, as you can see, I have already created one page, and this page is going to be taking input from the user. Not only that, in this entire execution I would love to involve JavaScript as well. And the question is, why do I need JavaScript? Because PHP is still there. Well, JavaScript is primarily used in context to client-side validation at the fundamental level. So here also I'm going to do the same, and if both the validations are successful, then only PHP would come in picture. With this notion, let's begin this particular video. So here, as you can see, the page is already there and it is supposed to take input from the user. What if user do not give any input, rather clicks on the button? As I do that, immediately you get to see a message pops up which was initially not there. Let me show you that. So let me reload the tab, and as you can see over here, there is no message that is initially been shown. If the user is not providing any data and I click on the button, it will show me a message, enter a valid first number. So it has not just rightly pointed out that this is the first DOM where the user is supposed to give the input. At the same time, the cursor is also blinking. That means it is clearly mentioning that give the input right over here. Okay, so DOM identification, that's the way you can see over here, it's stating that first number, and at the same time the cursor is also blinking. Okay, so let's hope that I will give some input, and at this point of time let's consider that I'm giving a numeric value. What if I would have given a character? That is also a concern, but that validation I'm not keeping at this point of time, but definitely in due course of time that will also be covered. Like I've given the input, first input I have given, but I am supposed to give the second input which I did not give, and instead of not giving, rather if I click on the button now, what should happen? Well, you can see it has rightly pointed out and the cursor shifted from the first DOM to the second DOM. It's saying that enter a valid number. So this entire validation which you are seeing at this point of time is actually a client-side validation. You don't need to send this information. You don't actually need to perform some basic validation. PHP, you should not use it, because after all PHP is going to be a server-side application. So you have to send the data to server, and then again it would come back to the client side, so that would take a lot of time, and you are putting pressure on the server as well. So try as much possible to do the validation at the front end, and then only when your data is sanitized, neat and clean, then you forward the data to the back end. So now if I give the input over here, suppose 22, again I'm considering this to be a numeric value, but in my upcoming video I will even take care about the regular expression as well. So I click on the addition button, and now we are going to see that sum of 11 and 22 is 33, and even the text box are actually neat and clean, so that the user can give the input once again. So if again the user is not giving any input, rather clicks on the button, it will again show that enter the first number. So let's go with some other number this time, and I click on the button again, the second validation pops up, and let's go with this, and finally we get to see the result. So the application is working very smoothly, and moreover I have made use of Bootstrap, and the purpose of using Bootstrap is to go for responsive. This is something what you should always keep it in mind, that you are not just doing the backend part, also you need to think about the front end. As you can see over here, it's purely responsive. See, the moment the screen size reduces, at that point of time this particular cell gets down, or I can say this particular column comes down to as a new row. You can see over here is a pure responsive nature I am maintaining right over here. So this is also something you need to take care about. Okay, now let's move on the code to see what exactly I'm doing right over here. And well, I need to say that this is my XAMPP control panel, and since I'm working on Mac, so this is how the control panel of XAMPP is working, and this is the latest version of XAMPP 8.2. okay, and over here right now Apache web server is enabled. MySQL is not. I did not enable MySQL because I'm not working on database at this very point of time. Okay, so let's move on to the code. As you can see over here, I have got the file calculator.php, which you just now saw the program. So if I just close the block of code like this way, you will find that there is let me show you one thing. Yes, let me bring it down so that you can see the stuff properly. So this is my PHP block. This is where the header part is involved, and this is where the body is involved. Okay, so that's how the different sections are there. So let's come to the header portion first to show you what is there in the header. Okay, header starts with the CDN link, and that is a link that is providing you to the Bootstrap CSS resources. So it's an online link, that is the CDN link, so you can easily get it from the getbootstrap.com website. And I'm not using any external CSS file, Bootstrap file, so directly I've connected to their URL, and that's called CDN. As you can see over here, I have got my JavaScript, which I said initially that this particular program will make use of JavaScript. So within the head tag JavaScript I have written, and we'll go through the JavaScript, don't worry. And inside the body I have got the rest of the entire portion. Okay, that's how the thing goes. So let's explore the body tag first, and then we'll get to the JavaScript, and finally we'll come to PHP. Since I'm maintaining the Bootstrap responsive nature, for that reason I'm using the container class. As you know, Bootstrap come up with two different container or container-fluid. I'm using the container, and because of that reason you can see from both sides there is a space been left off, and evenly space has been left off. That is because of the container. MT stand for margin, M for margin, T for top, -3. So this is the reason why you see this particular text at the top. There is a gap over here, so margin top is coming in picture. And then again I want to put the center heading tag at the center tag, and margin bottom with the size of 4, and that's the reason why you get to see this particular space right over here, and the reason why it is at the center because of the text -center is mentioned. This class of Bootstrap is working over here. Now let's come to the one more thing I would like to add. This is where the JavaScript file serial link has been added in context to Bootstrap. Bootstrap come up with two different CDN. One is for the CSS, the other one is for the JavaScript. It's a good practice if you write the JavaScript at the end of the HTML code. That's how it would be much safer in context to that. Okay, unless and until it is your custom code. So here I have written my custom function of JavaScript, but the CDN part I have added at the bottom, because below this there is no HTML involved, so everything will get rendered smoothly. Okay, now let's come to the form tag. This is something which is most important, and this is something what you need to highlight actually. Okay, this is where the main focus lies actually. Well, if you see over here, this is my form, this portion is a form, and this is a div tag is there, where I have made use of a variable over here. Okay, so this is a div tag where we are going to print certain content coming from PHP. As you can see over here, the PHP tag has been written over here, and the echo keyword is used to print statement in PHP, and $msg is the variable name which you will find in the PHP very soon, and it ends with the semicolon. So this is where the content of a PHP will be printed. Okay, that's great. And it's not like that we are going to print only PHP, you can also make use of HTML. We'll see that part even. So let me close this tab. So I'm just showing you the different segments that are there in the file, so that it is much easy for you to understand, and you can highlight exactly which portion is doing what work. So let's see how the form tag is going to work. The form tag comes up with certain attributes. Every form has got a method, and I want to send data through form. That's the reason I'm going from method equals to post. Well, this is a type of HTTP request. What type of request it is of type post request. So that means it will be sending data inside the form in the encrypted format. Had this been a GET request, in that case you would have seen the data in the form of key value pair right over here. In the URL bar, the data would come down right over here, but that's not what I'm doing. I am using the post HTTP request, and if you are going for post, then the data will be passed through form tag, and that's where the encryption comes in. Okay, you will not be able to visualize the data, what data is being sent and who is carrying the data. Okay, these information, who is carrying the data and what the data it is, nothing will be visible in the URL bar. Okay, now in your HTML page you can have a multiple form, so for that reason I have given a name to this particular form. So this form name is called user input. So what did I say? I say that in a single HTML page you can have multiple form. Okay, so this is just one form I've written. It doesn't mean that in one HTML there will be one form. It's not like that. You can have multiple forms, and that you will see very soon. Forms will be there. Okay, so this particular form I've given a name called user input. You're free to choose whatever name you feel like. Here is where the JavaScript function comes in picture. This is the line where JavaScript is getting called, and over here the Bootstrap class is getting called, and the class is row, and there is a gap -3 is given. Okay, so that's the reason you can see some gap right over here. If this -3 gap was not there, then this particular cell would have come down. It would have been in the next row. But I have given, this is something what is available in Bootstrap 5 version, a new version. They have come down with this particular feature. G stands for gap, how much gap you want for a particular row. Okay, and you can try out with this code. If you remove this one, you will find that this particular cell will come down to the next row. Okay, nonetheless, so that's where the Bootstrap comes in picture. Now let's focus on this important portion, and this is where the center of attraction is. On submit is actually an event handling of JavaScript. So when you are clicking the button, let's come to the form tag. What is there inside the form? We have got a DOM element, which is your first text box. The second DOM element, I am using the word DOM, document object model, because these are all objects in the DOM tree. If you search in Google by the word called DOM tree, you will find a tree representation you will be getting, just like what we do in data structure. In data structure, we were been taught the chapter tree, TREE, like B tree, I mean binary tree, or B plus tree, or AVL tree, or red black tree. Now why are those things being taught? And in that regard, HTML will be a very ideal example. So I would request all of you to give a search in Google writing DOM tree, and you will come across the tree structure where the document is the first element, and thereafter the entire thing follows. So these are all the DOM objects. So this is one DOM object, this is the second DOM object, and this is third DOM object. So you can say that there are three DOM objects, where the first two DOM are basically text box, and the third DOM is actually a button. Now since there are multiple DOM elements inside the form, so quite naturally you need to identify the DOM, right? So each of these DOM has got a particular identifier. So name is the identifier. Even the form has got a name. So this particular DOM is named as num1. This DOM has got the name as num2, and this DOM has got the name called submit. So in a particular form, all the DOM elements should have a unique identifier, and that's how the browser will differentiate between one DOM with that of the other one. Okay, so now what is happening? The thing goes like this. You're supposed to fill the input for the first DOM. Same goes with the second DOM, and thereafter you are supposed to click this particular button. So once you are clicking the button, you are going to submit. See, it's called type as submit. So what are you submitting? You're submitting the form. So that's the reason why the keyword submit is there. The submit means you are giving a submission of the form, and that's the event. So when you are submitting a form, so on submit gets called. Until and unless you click the button, this particular JavaScript function will not be in action. I repeat, as you load the page, see, nothing happens. It will happen only when you click on the button. So at that point of time, you are actually submitting the form. So on submit is an event handler of JavaScript, and that's give a call to a function which I have written at the top, and that is called validation inside the script tag. So as you can see over here, there's a script tag, it's starting script and the script end. Within that I have written one function. Well, you can have as many functions you want. So below this you can have multiple functions as well. It doesn't matter. That many functions you want, you can come up with. It doesn't matter. So there is a function called validation which I have written over here. So when the control will submit the form, at that point of time this validation function will be invoked. So the control will come right over here. Now what is the purpose of this function? The function purpose is to pick up the data from individual DOM. Please follow what I am saying. The particular function is meant to pick up the data from each of this DOM. So you will give one input in this particular DOM. I need to collect that input, and that's what been done by this particular statement. The question is, how do the DOM get identified? And for that reason I said, if you go and search in Google DOM tree, you will find the root of the DOM tree is called document. Well, that's a document which has been mentioned over here. Now inside this document we have got the form tag, And as I said that there can be a multiple form in a single HTML page, the question is how do you identify the DOM, and there where the name attribute come in picture. I have given the name for this particular form as user input. Since a particular HTML page can have a multiple form, so for that reason it's written over here forms. Be very careful, it's not singular, it's plural, it's forms. So you can submit multiple forms, and the current form which I am submitting, I have given the name as user input. So that's what I've written over here. So if I actually pick up this particular segment, it means that you are identifying this particular form, right? Yes. Now within this particular form you have a DOM by the name called num1. That's what I'm identifying right over here. So you can think like this as a container. Within that container there are particular segments are there. So this is one segment, this is another segment, okay? Or you can think as like a matrix, a double dimensional matrix. So this is the out matrix name, and inside the matrix name these are different rows. You can think so like that. That's the way you can think about it. So this is the name of the form name I've given. Within this particular form you have got the DOM called num1. So that's what I am identifying, and once JavaScript identifies that, whatever input you have given in this particular DOM, that gets saved inside this variable. Well, I intentionally have given the DOM name and the variable name same. It doesn't make any difference because this is a DOM, this is a variable. You can come up with the same name. If you feel like, you can change the name also. It doesn't matter. That's totally your choice. So there where the first input gets stored, the same process, the second input will be stored again. First the form is been identified, and then the DOM element within that particular form gets identified. So once the DOM has been detected, the variable has been initialized right over here. Well, this is one way of picking the data from a particular text box. There can be another way you can identify your DOM. So this is the another format of identifying, where you are giving a call to a method called getElementById. Well, this particular method is very popular in the web world, and you must have seen many places where this particular function has been given a call. Well, I could have used the same approach for picking up the data from the text box, but I preferred this approach because this is more neat and clean and very professional level. So DOM.getElement, document.getElementById, if you scroll down over here, I have got one div tag which has an ID over here, and the ID name is called output. Since I'm referring it by ID, that's the reason I have used the keyword ID over here, okay? Had this been a class name, then I would have given a call by getElementByClassName. And please keep minute watch that these are all case sensitive, like it's a camel case, okay? So here also I have identified the DOM, and I have given the thing with the variable name by the name called message clear. And look over here, I have declared this variable with the var keyword, and this I have gone for const. So there is a difference between var and const, okay? So please do check that one as well. So I'm saying that if the content of this variable dot value, so value is a property, so if the content of this variable is blank, in that case put the cursor on that particular text box. So that's the reason on focus is there. So variable name dot focus is a JavaScript function that will actually keep the text cursor on the text box. Let me show you that. So if I load the tab page once again, and if I don't do anything, if I click on this, as I am clicking on this, the form submission takes place, and as a result this particular detection takes place, and the variable is empty. Hence the cursor is blinking right over there. As you can see, the cursor is blinking. Okay, let me try it once again. See, the cursor is blinking over here. That is because of focus. And now I'm trying to print a message in this particular empty div tag, where already PHP is there, but this PHP will not be in action because PHP I did not give a call yet, okay? So over here I can use a variable, like I have given name of variable as message clear, and I'm giving a call to a property called inner HTML to display some text within a particular div tag via JavaScript variable. So this is a variable name I have given, dot inner HTML is a property, and this is a message which I am putting forward. Eventually this particular message will be reflected at this particular div tag. You might be wondering why it is so, because I have already identified the DOM element and I've given the name to that DOM element by the name called message clear. So message clear dot inner HTML, whatever I will write, that will be visible inside this particular div tag, and that's the reason why you are seeing this particular message. Enter a valid number. Now if I provide a number over here, and as I click on the submit button, the same thing will be happening again. This time this particular variable has got the value, so this if condition will not be returning anything. Well, what do I mean by returning? See over here, if this particular condition becomes true, then it will return false. Yes, this is very important. You have to return false. In that case, what happens, the validation function will stay within this particular HTML. This form is not going to be submitted successfully because it has returned false. So unless and until it's returned true, your form submission will not take place, thereby PHP will not be called. So for that reason, this return false is very essential as long as this if condition is true. Okay, so once if condition is true, it will return false, hence the control will stay back in this particular page. So now if I click the button, you will find the cursor is right over here. It's all because the control is still in this particular HTML page. And now I'm checking whether the content of this particular second variable is empty or not, and it does so. So the cursor will focus on that particular DOM, like what you can see right over here. And I have given a message with the help of inner HTML. This is the message that got printed in this particular div tag, and that's the reason why you are seeing this message, enter a valid number, and that all did come right from here, and it is returning a false, hence this particular form stays right over here. Okay, so that's how this particular JavaScript is working with the very basic level validation. As I said, you can apply as many validation you want using regular expression, because you might even check whether the input that has been given is actually a number or not. How do you know that? For that reason, you have to go for regular expression. Now imagine you have given both the input. In that case, if you click on the submit button, what happened in that time? Well, this variable is not empty, hence this block does not get executed. Neither this variable is empty, so this block does not get executed. It will come to the return true. So once the return true has been encountered, then only this particular validation function is successful, in the sense that the form actually is getting loaded, or the form is actually getting submitted. So with the form submission means you are giving a call to the PHP block. Let me close this script because the form submission has taken place successfully. So once the form has been submitted, at that point of time the PHP block will be getting executed, or the PHP server side execution will take place. Got it? So now what we are checking over here is inside the PHP, this is the way you write a PHP starting block, and that's the way you end the PHP block. At the very beginning, I've declared a variable in PHP. While declaring variable, you don't need to mention the data type, you just need to mention the $ followed by the variable name, and it's a string variable, so I have given a quotation open quotation close, right? Now what I'm checking is that did the button submission has been successful? Is set yes. Once this input you have given successfully, as you click on the button, you know this particular function is now true, hence isSet is a function in PHP that actually going to check whether the submission of the button is successful or not, and the method type is post or not. That's the reason why you have seen over here $_post within third bracket name of the button is given, and this is true. isSet is true. Yes, actually the button has been set and the form has been submitted successfully. So if this condition is true, now what it's going to do is that it's going to pick up the data one by one. Previously JavaScript picked up the data. That's what the approach of JavaScript picking up the data, but by PHP picking up the data is very straightforward. As you can see over here, I have a name attribute, so that's what I'm saying, $_post, and the name I've given within third bracket. So this is like an array, and within the array these elements are there. So it is picking up the first element, DOM element, and it's storing inside a variable called $name1, see num1 rather. See, everywhere I'm using the same variable name just for simplicity. You are free to choose whatever name you want. So I gave the same name in the JavaScript, I'm using the same name in your PHP. That means you are free to choose the same name also, because these are different blocks, right? They will not interfere among each other. So that's how this particular text box is being identified. The variable is initialized. Same goes with the second text box. As you can see over here, the name is num2, and that what got initialized right over here. Now remember, when you're picking up the data with the help of the $_post, by default, even if you're giving a numeric value, they would be of type string. I repeat, even if you are giving a numeric value, they would be of type string, hence you need to go for typecasting, and that's what I did right over here. So the variable is holding a string data, that means this input 11 or 60 seems to be a numeric type, but in reality they are not numeric, they are of type string. For that reason I have to go for typecasting. So that's the way I typecasted, so that I get the data in the numeric form, and I am storing that in $num1. Same I do for the variable num2 inside the variable num2. Okay, and now what I'm doing, I'm just going for the addition, and hence I got the variable called $total. Now I'm initializing this particular string variable which I declared initially. Look over here, I have gone for string concatenation. I wrote sum of num1 $num1, see over here, this is a concatenation operator, and num2 is this kind of statement you must have seen number of times I write in regard to different programming language, whether it's a Python or C language or any other programming language. I go for this approach so that you're acquainted with the concatenation way out. Okay, so now let's see the final output. As I click on this, and here comes the result. Sum of 11 and 60 is 71, and this is what been shown right from here. Okay, I can show you the difference, like total, like I just replace this word sum with add, addition of, yes, this would be good enough, addition of. So now let's come over here, let's reload the page, and let's give a new data like 33, and let's come up with 66. And as I click on this, now it's showing addition of, previously it was showing sum. So that means my PHP is working very smoothly. Okay, I believe you have understood this entire flow of data. So this was a section of PHP, this was a section of JavaScript which performed the validation, and finally you found the DOM element and the form, the submission, the JavaScript invocation, along with that the Bootstrap to come up with a very responsive, good looking, user-friendly environment. Okay, so this is how JavaScript will be used, this is how PHP will be used. In my upcoming videos I have got more programs to come up with, and always remember, take input from the user, don't just go with dummy text. Okay, try to take input from the user, try to perform the validation as much possible. At the end of the day, your project is going to be a live project which the general users are going to use. So why to come up with some dummy data right from the very beginning? Stick to the live implementation, that would make you feel more professional. Okay, so that's all from this video presentation. See you soon. Bye bye, take care.